Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we're doing a movie review, which is honestly something I haven't done in a while. Not counting our Halloween videos back in October, I haven't really done a normal movie review in a long time. But here we go. Today we're talking about the latest film from DC Comics, Wonder Woman 1984. Now, back when reviews were first coming out for this movie, everyone was like praising the hell out of it, talking about how great it was. And then just in recent days, that all changed, and now everybody is ripping this movie apart. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this, but coming out of it, you know what? I enjoyed it. But it definitely has issues. There are a lot of things I liked about it, but there's a lot of things that didn't work. It's a very mixed bag of a movie. It suffers from what a lot of sequels suffer. Mainly just bloated and overly long and has too much going on. So it's kind of unfortunate, especially coming after the first Wonder Woman movie, which I thought was fantastic. Minus the issues with the third act, I really like that movie. It's my second favorite of the DC Universe films, under Shazam. And there are moments in this movie that does capture the magic of the first Wonder Woman. There's definitely elements of it in here. It just gets bogged down by a lot of problematic stuff that I feel like maybe if they had done like one more draft of the script, they would have cleared some things up or even trimmed the movie a bit, because the movie is 2.5 hours long and it really doesn't need to be. It's a very simple premise that just kind of gets stretched. But not only that, they throw so much into it with characters and plot points, and there are certain things that just doesn't get time to develop. So even though it is 2.5 hours, the movie at times feels rushed. So it's a lot of mixed things. Now, I'm going to start out this review with being spoiler-free. Then at the end, I'm going to discuss some spoilers. I don't really feel like doing a whole separate video for spoilers. So the last half, I'll be discussing spoilers. So I don't really know how to describe the plot of this movie without spoiling some things, because the main plot point that kind of drives the whole story wasn't actually revealed in the trailers, unless I missed those ones. But that wasn't revealed at all, and I was kind of surprised at what it was. It's a really kind of goofy thing. But essentially you have Diana Prince living in 1984, still not over the death of Steve Trevor, who's like the love of her life. But then she also has to take on Max Lord, this tycoon businessman who's a big TV personality, but also runs an oil business that's failing. And then also you have Barbara, who works at the Smithsonian with her, who becomes Cheetah, and also somehow Steve Trevor comes back. So it's basically Diana Prince and Steve Trevor taking on these bad guys. So this movie is unapologetically goofy and cheesy and silly. And you know what? I like that. There's something about the kind of like cheesy sincerity of this, even the first Wonder Woman, and then also Shazam, that I just really enjoy. And I feel like that works for the character of Wonder Woman. And I remember saying in the review for the first Wonder Woman that a lot of that movie harkens back to the Richard Donner Superman movies. Well, this one does that even more so, to the point where like it really is like a cheesy, like silly comic book movie that actually opens with a scene almost out of Superman 3, which is this goofy scene going through the city as goofy slapsticky shenanigans happen. And I'm like, okay, this is setting a really interesting tone. Then that leads into a scene in the mall where Wonder Woman takes out these guys who are robbing this jewelry store, and it is like super cheesy. This movie is like a mesh of the Donner Superman movies and the Wonder Woman TV show. That's kind of what this movie's going for. But you know what? I gotta give them props for just going all in on it. You know, it totally embraces that silly, goofy nature that I feel like a lot of people are going to be taken aback by. And I feel like with how comic book movies have kind of evolved to now, some people probably won't like it because they're like, this is goofy. And I liked it though. I thought that was kind of a fun tone, kind of change of pace from the way comic book movies are. Like, this movie is super bright. Like, its lighting and everything and colors in the movie, it's a very bright movie just technically. And that adds to like the tone and everything. But I thought all that was good. The cast in the movie is fantastic. They do all that they can with this material material. You have Gal Gadot, who's still fantastic as Wonder Woman, and I feel like her acting actually has improved since the last film, so she's great. Chris Pine coming back as Steve Trevor, which I'll get into that in a minute, but he was great. I've always loved Chris Pine as an actor. I just thought he always had great, like, he's always so charming, and he has great comedic timing, and there's a lot of that in here with him being the fish out of water character, kind of the reverse of the first Wonder Woman movie, which I thought was kind of fun, and he pulls it off great, and his chemistry with Gal Gadot is fantastic. So, like, even though you like probably didn't need to bring Steve Trevor back into this movie, it's still welcome just to see them play off each other, because that's what it is. Once Steve Trevor comes back, it kind of becomes like a team-up movie with Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor trying to figure out this plan and everything, and it's great, it's great. And you get to the villains, which are also a highlight. Pedro Pascal as Max Lord, he's just having a ball. He goes all in on this character who's so many kind of different things, from this over-the-top TV personality to also this kind of just like really greedy, kind of messed up guy. Every scene he was in was just so entertaining. And then also a surprise was Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, who, you know, it's always kind of that one thing, like, is this gonna work? You got a comedic actor playing this kind of serious role, but no, she was great. The issues kind of come with how, like, the character's written, especially because she's essentially just Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman in Batman Returns. At the beginning, she's like, you know, this timid, shy person with the big glasses and frizzy hair, you know, nobody talks to, and then transforms into the sexy, you know, person everyone wants to be with and all that kind of stuff. And that was like, okay, I've seen it before, but her performance was great. Like, all the cast is fantastic. And then that brings us to bringing back Steve Trevor, which is something I was really nervous about because I really liked that character in the first film. I liked his whole story, and I really liked his sacrifice at the end. I thought it was really well executed, and it was a really great emotional moment. And then when I heard they're bringing him back, I was like, oh, okay, you're just gonna undo all that. You know, I was like really like worried. But the way it's done in this movie, it's not the way it's executed I have problems with, but the overall idea of how they brought him back worked for me. I was like, oh, okay. It works for the story, and what I liked the most about it is that it doesn't undo his sacrifice in the last film. His death scene in the first movie is still gonna have that weight to it, so I like that. So I was actually okay with how he was brought back, except for one of the details, which I'll mention in spoilers, which one, wasn't really explained well enough, and two, was just like, is that really how he had to do it? And it raises a lot of questions. A lot of ethical questions. I'm like, that doesn't quite work. But aside from that, I like the way they brought back Steve Trevor. I thought that was good. So, what doesn't work with this movie, like I mentioned, is that it is overstuffed. You know, there's a lot in this movie. You have Max Lord's plot, you have Cheetah's plot, you have Steve Trevor coming back, and you have all these other details thrown in there, like the setup to Wonder Woman's new costume that you see in like all the posters and the trailers, which was totally pointless. You didn't need that in this movie at all. And even like, you almost didn't need the character of Cheetah because really Max Lord is the main villain of the movie. He's the main like antagonist. And really, the whole storyline, you almost didn't need Cheetah in there with how, hey, his storyline was going. I don't know if this is really a spoiler or not, but she doesn't become like full-on Cheetah till the climax of the movie. And even then, it's just for like one fight scene. And that's it. And I know everyone's been complaining about the Cheetah like CGI, like stuff like that. It was okay, I don't know. It didn't look as awful as I was expecting. I feel like it could have been a pretty decent design if they kind of, I can't really tell if they had like, if it was mostly CGI, if it was makeup, because they didn't linger on it much. She kind of just popped up and then they fought and then that was it. Like, you didn't really see too much of it, and I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing, but it just felt rushed. Like, a lot of the third act of this movie did feel rushed, you know? And also the message of the movie gets spelled out really easily throughout, mainly in the opening scene and the ending. They just spell out the theme for you, because the movie opens with this sequence, which was fun. Like, actually, I liked it while watching it, but ultimately it felt pointless in the long run. It's this big flashback sequence set on Themyscira with young Wonder Woman, and you also see like Robin Wright's character, and you see her mom and everything, and it's this like Olympic game, and she's like running around jumping through stuff, and it's a fun sequence, and I liked returning to Themyscira because I liked all that stuff, so I thought that was fun. But then ultimately you're like, we didn't really need that. I feel like that's how a lot of this movie is. Like, I'm watching it, I'm like, this is fun, this is good. And then when I think about it, I'm like, no. I feel like that's what it was. Like, I did enjoy myself while watching it. I was never bored. And like I mentioned, the new armor, which is just there to give her a new costume in the movie. It looks cool. I do like it, don't get me wrong. But it really is just there to give her a new costume. You know, like, it's so thinly set up throughout the film to the point where, like, you're like, why is it even in here? And even then, it's kind of useless because it really doesn't do much, and most of it gets destroyed like that. Like, the wings of it get destroyed very quickly. And it also just feels weird that it's just like this ancient armor from this ancient warrior in the past, and she uses it to go fight Cheetah and Max Lord, who's just this dude. You know what I mean? It's like, she fought Ares in the last movie. You know, that's the god of war. And she didn't have this fancy armor, and now she's getting it to fight Cheetah. If that's it, I would have saved that for the third movie and given her some huge, bigger threat to fight to make that armor feel epic and earned. I mean, this movie, it doesn't really feel like that. It just feels, like I said, just a new costume. Like, oh, there you go. Though that armor does have a cool payoff in the post-credits scene that did bring a smile to my face. I did like that moment. And it's because there's so much stuff going on in the movie, they have to come up with a bunch of plot conveniences to get people from point A to point B, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like, they find out that they have to go to Cairo, because that's where Max Lord is, and so they go to a Smithsonian and steal a jet, which, one, I don't know why that jet in the Smithsonian has fuel in it, and two, Steve Trevor flies it like it's nothing. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I got it, just gotta do this thing I know what to do, because I'm a pilot. And I'm like, what? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So there's moments like that just don't make any sense, and it just feels like because there's so much stuff going on in the script that they just have to go like, well, that's fine, that's good enough. Let's just get them to here so this stuff can happen. And one thing I forgot to mention in the positives of the movie is the score by Hans Zimmer, which is fantastic. He scores the crap out of this movie. Like, the score is not his typical, like, Christopher Nolan bombastic type of score. There's a lot of this kind of big action-y stuff. There's also a lot of good, like, majestic, like, stuff. Like, it's a really great soundtrack. I love the score, especially in the opening scene on Themyscira, where when it first opens and introduces the place and everything. Like, it's a great way to start the film. Like, I love the score for this movie. I thought it was great. So before I get into spoilers, overall, the movie's enjoyable, but has a lot of issues. It's kind of a messy script. There's some dumb plot choices that just don't work, but it is made up for it with a really great cast. Gal Gadot is still fantastic as Wonder Woman, and her chemistry with Chris Pine as Steve Trevor is great. All the scenes with him discovering the 80s was great. You know, I love the villains. Like, I thought they were a lot of fun, especially Pedro Pascal was having a blast with it. So there are good elements, but it's overall kind of a mixed bag of a movie for me. At least that's my initial viewing. You know, as time goes on, I might like it less, or I might like it more, I don't know. But initially coming out of it, mixed bag. So on to spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, don't want anything ruined for you, just click off now. So starting off with the main driving point of the film, the main plot point, which revolves around this stone that can grant wishes. Which, I don't know how to feel about that. It's kind of a goofy idea, which, I mean, I guess it kind of fits the tone of the movie, because the movie is a goofy movie, but it is a really goofy thing to, like, have your whole plot revolve around people making wishes. I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird, and that's how Steve Trevor comes back, is that Wonder Woman wishes for him to come back, and he does. So I was okay with that, because, like I said, it's not really him, and in the end, she still had to lose him again, and it all kind of makes sense. Like, he wasn't, like, resurrected, or he wasn't, like, they didn't bring him back through time travel. They didn't do anything kind of crazy like that. In the long run, it's not really Steve Trevor. It's just something she thought up as Steve Trevor in a sense. So that's why I was okay with it. But you get to how he actually comes back, in that he possesses another man's body, which I just thought was weird. And I don't know why they had to do that. I don't know if they explained it or not. I feel like they didn't, unless I missed it. But if they explained why for him to come back he had to possess someone. Because, like, later on when the president is asking for nukes and everything, like, nukes are just appearing out of nowhere. And then, even then, when they, you know, take back their wishes, the nukes just disappear. So why couldn't Steve Trevor just appear out of nowhere and be Steve Trevor? You know, I can just, like, wake up like, oh, hey, I'm Steve Trevor. Why do you have to possess someone else's body? You know? And then, of course, that gets to the weird things of them sleeping together. And it's like, well, does that mean Wonder Woman essentially raped that man? You know, because that really technically isn't Steve Trevor, and then that raises questions. Then you have that awkward scene of them at the end where she actually meets the guy, and they're like, oh, they start to, like, almost form, like, a relationship, and I'm just like, this is all weird. And that's the thing, if they maybe had explained that more, or, you know, explored it a bit more and had to be kind of a big deal, then maybe it could have been something interesting, but they didn't have time to do that because they had to get right into their plot of them trying to stop Max Lord and everything. And that's also, I thought, kind of weird how, like, Steve Trevor kind of just, like, has a couple scenes of being all, like, in awe of, like, oh, wow, this is crazy, and then all of a sudden he's like, nope, okay, we're going to stop the bad guy. And I don't know, it just seemed really quick, really fast, you know, so that was a little weird. I did find it funny though how in a movie that's so cheesy and goofy, they still tried to come up with like a real, like, logical way to have an invisible jet. Like, they weren't just like, no, she has an invisible jet, which honestly wouldn't have been out of place at all in this type of movie. Instead they gave some sort of explanation for it, and I thought it was actually kind of clever. Actually, I didn't mind it, in that she, Diana says that she's been practicing kind of the magic that, like, that Mascaran has to create that whole, like, invisible shield around their place, and that's how she makes the jet that they're flying invisible. And I'm like, you know what, that's not too bad. It works, but I wouldn't have minded it if they just kind of embraced the silliness and just be like, yeah, I have an invisible jet, why not, you know? Another weird thing the movie does is that at this point in time, the Wonder Woman, like, persona is a complete secret to the public. Like, literally to the point where no one even knows that there's a Wonder Woman running around saving people, despite that she runs around and saves people in, like, broad daylight in front of hundreds of people. Like, at the mall scene, with all those people around. And I know, like, you see her destroying the security cameras and everything, but still, like, the fact that, you know, one, no one recognizes her when they see her as Diana Prince, but also the fact that there really are no pictures or anything, like, no evidence of that. It felt really weird and didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know if they were trying to, like, keep continuity with Batman vs Superman, because in that movie, you know, they say that, like, she was in hiding for 100 years. Even though I know Patty Jenkins, like, outright said she thought that was a dumb idea and was, like, said she was going to contradict that in her movies, but she still kind of follows it in a way by not making Wonder Woman a publicly known thing. And I thought that was just, like, I don't know, I thought it was weirdly executed. I don't know, again, if that was something that could have been delved into further, maybe explored a bit more, but it just felt like it didn't make sense to me. Like, how she could be out there saving all those people and doing all these things, but no one bats an eye at it, and it's not a well-known thing. No one's going around being like, did you hear that apparently this superpowered person was saving people at this mall? You know, none of that gets out. I don't know, I just didn't quite understand that, and it didn't really quite work for me. One thing I did enjoy, though, in the movie is that at the end of the movie, none of the villains die. And the fact that they just kind of, like, learn their lesson, essentially, which is another thing that felt like it was right out of the 70s TV show, where, you know, the villains they don't blow up or anything, they just, like, learn their mistakes. You know, and I actually kind of like that. I thought that was a very good change of pace from your typical comic book movie. You know, I like that idea. There were certain scenes that just felt off to me. The scene where Max Lord is in the White House talking to the president, something about that scene just didn't feel right. I'm not sure if it was kind of the weird acting from the president, or just, I don't know, the whole thing felt really off to me. I'm like, it didn't work. And, you know, the whole with the president being like, I wish that we had all the nukes pointed everywhere to everyone know that we have power and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I don't know. I really did not care for that. That action scene, though, of Wonder Woman and Cheetah fighting in the White House, and that was a fun sequence. I liked that. I kind of briefly mentioned at the post-credit scene, where you find out that that Amazonian god who was the original owner of the golden armor is still wandering around, and she is Linda Carter. I liked it. I mean, that made me smile. Like, it was a nice little nod. Great nod. You have to pay respect to Linda Carter, and that was really well executed. I like that moment. I don't know if that's going to come into play in future films, though. Like, is her character going to team up with Wonder Woman at some point, which I actually wouldn't mind seeing that. Kind of seeing Gal Gadot and Linda Carter together on screen would be kind of fun. Although that might kind of confuse people with their whole multiverse idea, because with the Flash movie and you have Michael Keaton's Batman and it's like a whole multiverse, but then you have Linda Carter playing a totally different character. That might be a weird thing, you know, that's kind of a confusing aspect. But I don't know, I hope that I would rather see her play that character and, like, come back into Wonder Woman 3 than visit an alternate reality where you see her version of Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? I'd rather see something kind of new and original than just kind of being like, oh, here's the alternate universe with 70s Wonder Woman played by Linda Carter. I'd rather have her play this new character fighting alongside Gal Gadot. I think that'd be really neat, and I wouldn't mind seeing something like that in the third film. Like, even though this movie had its issues, I'd still be down for a third movie. Like I said, I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of her. I do think, and I know they were saying this too, they should move it to modern day, I feel like, at this point. Because, you know, the 80s setting was fine. They didn't go too far with it in this movie, except for, like, the kind of scene of Steve Trevor trying on the clothes. They didn't overdo the 80s-ness. Like, there isn't constant 80s music in there, and I appreciated that. They didn't like that. They didn't let the setting overshadow the story, but I do think we should move into modern day with the next film. I don't know how they're going to handle that, though, because then they're going to have to, like, mention the Justice League, or maybe they'll just ignore it like the Aquaman movie did. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I am curious to see what a Wonder Woman 3 would be. You know, if Patty Jenkins comes back, which I'd be okay with. I know some people are a little concerned now because she wrote this movie, and this movie's not very well written. But you know what? She did such a great job with the first one, and for the most part did a good job with this one, just besides its flaws, that I'm okay with her coming back, and I'd be down for that, for her to kind of complete like a trilogy of movies. I think it'd be a really cool thing, and curious to see where that goes. So yeah, that's Wonder Woman 84. I'm sure there's more things I'm missing that I'm going to want to talk about, and I'm sure my opinion on things are going to change as time goes on, but whatever. This is my current thoughts on the film. I think I'm just happy to be talking about a brand new comic book movie in 2020, since didn't really get to do much of that this year. Didn't really get to do much of talking about new movies in general this year, so the fact that we got a new one right at the end there was nice. Despite it not being as good as I wanted it to be, because I did have a lot of high hopes for this one. And you know what? It is what it is. And yeah, that's all I have to say for now. So until next time, talk to you guys later.